So they talk about societal changes. They talk about governments and the rise and fall of civilizations. When we apply it to a natal horoscope, we're going to get large pieces of information that are going to talk about our connection to the society, to the larger realm of things. So, for example, an author's horoscope, he has, let's find a nice one here. He's got Uranus and Apollon running together with his Jupiter by half of a degree, right? And right now, that Uranus and Apollon are due by solar arc, and we're talking about astrology in his chart, and Uranus and Apollon rules astrology according to the Uranian system. Right?
This is Apollon.
Yeah, and so the concept is that Apollon has to do with the science of things, and Uranus has to do with astrology. An author did his life and gained through astrology in general. Right? So here we can see that they're due by arc because the green line and the red line are exact on those combinations. So he's getting resurrected for the moment. Right? Other things in the transnepts, Chronos has to do with authority, people in great authority. And we see that he leaves us the polar azimuthal, the material structure. That is useful. That is a secret. Hades is secrets, a secret science. Apollon, from the ancients, brought to us in the very high level form. And again, he gains through it. And it's a material structure. Saturn and Jupiter. Right? This is a complete planetary picture.
Yes.
Right? We have our symmetries here. The opening between Apollon and Saturn is the same as between Hades and Jupiter. The opening between Chronos and Hades is the same as between Chronos and Apollon. And these are all equal arc openings. So when we talk about the system, we don't care where something is. If you have your sun in Aries or you have your sun in Gemini, well, that's cute, that's descriptive, we can describe things with it. But what is your sun running with? Is that sun running with Saturn? Is that sun conjunct Jupiter? These are the important things. This allows us to ask questions. So I can now ask a question in this horoscope and look at it the way it is. For example, the what is in his horoscope is that he has Mercury on the ascendant with the moon and Mars. So he can be very bitchy. He could complain about everything. He could be very aggravating. He could be very curt and short with people. Right? That's what's so. But let's ask a question. Let's say that, does he have a nice side? Does he express himself well when he wants to? And yes, we would ask that question by saying, well, let's look at Mercury and Venus, which is pleasant conversation. Right? And here we see, like the moon, it's very close to Pluto. He had a hard time being charming, but when he was charming, he was very charming, right? And the girls liked him for that. Right? So he did very well in those areas of life. He was very attractive to people, even though he was a very, very strong Scorpio.
Well, that's what I do. I like that.
Arthur was a siderealist, and he considered himself a high-class Libra. But we always said, oh, that's just because you were a Scorpio. Now, the other thing we can do is we can ask lifetime-type questions. For example, when we take that sun and we progress it, let me do this. That sun. Let's progress it.
We're going to the
right. Now here's the sun going around here, and it comes to this position when we progress it. Right? We would say, as we showed earlier, that it's going to come to the Mars in 1.25 years. But we can go much further. We can say it comes to that Pluto in 3 to 4.5 years. It comes to the Venus in 10 years. It comes to the Chronos in 15.5 years. We see this at a glance. This is at a glance. I can go and look at its reverse solar arc, the contra solar arc, and we can see right now Saturn and Venus is due. We're talking about Arthur's chart, and he has nothing to say about it because he's not here. So, but at this point in time, we're forcing Arthur into the public. We're forcing him to wake up from his sleep and his slumber. Right? So we can turn these arcs on and off, move them quickly, back and forth. We can take this chart and take put these transits on, take the transits off. We could put the progressions on and put the progressions off. Right? We can do reflexes on and reflexes off. If we go to the cardinal axis, we can turn on the anticias, which are reflections on the cardinal axis. Now, one thing I should note, the Uranian system builds itself around the building up of what we call the 6 personal points, which are in the outer form, you have the Aries axis, the cardinal, the ascendant, the node, right? And the sun, moon, and midheaven. The sun, moon, and midheaven are how you experience things. The sun, physical body, the moon, emotional body. The midheaven is the personal point of view, how I see things. It's the only piece of the horoscope that isn't part of the ecliptic, it's part of the equator. So we say that the soul enters the body through the midheaven, and at death, the soul leaves the body through the midheaven. And the other 3 personal points, the Aries axis, the ascendant, and the node, all have to do with types of connection. So the node has to do with intimate connections that we don't have much choice about. That's why it's called karma. Your family, the person you make children with, your blood relatives that are extended away, people you have to work with, situations you're thrust into. Those kinds of connections with which we don't have much choice, but they're intimate and they're not easily seen externally. The ascendant has to do with place, the connections to the place. So right now, we're communicating through a movie at a location, at a place. This is an ascendant function, the interaction of people at a place. So the ascendant in your horoscope is how other people see your environment and how you see your environment and the interface between the two. That means that the cardinal axis, 0, Aries, Cancer, Capricorn, Libra, have to do with connections to the generality or the world. Now, this actually makes it one of the most important forms in the horoscope. The ancients had no need for the cardinal axis because they weren't global in nature. But the modern world has great need for the cardinal axis because we are so globalized, we're so interconnected. And the cardinal axis tells us how well we stand in the generality. This is why Anticia was so important to the ancients, because it's reflections off the cardinal axis. And they tell us, is this person connected to the cardinals or not? When we have a midpoint standing on the cardinal axis, that means we also have a rough parallel or contraparallel in the sky as well. So it becomes even more powerful because it's showing us a symmetrical connection in 2 frameworks. So in Arthur's case here, right, he doesn't have a lot of reflections going on, but we can take and you don't know him well in the world. He wasn't famous, right? But if we connect, say, the node to Mercury, we see that it stands on the Neptune, and we see it stands close to the cardinal axis, right? So we know that through mental structures and through connections of intimates at locales, he could get out into the world through the metaphysical realm. He was an astrologer, right? And this shows us that his communications and his connections to intimates through mental works was for the purposes of enlightening them and showing them new different ways of doing things. Now, we have big trans-Neptunians connected here as well, and the Admetos tells us that it was a limited group.
Yes, maybe that's why he didn't want to be recognized or be famous.
Well, it was a strange thing. When he was 12 years old, he was lecturing nationally for what was called the Workers' Union of the World. His father was a Marxist.
A cartographer, no?
His father was a cartographer and a Marxist. His father was a cartographer and he was a communist. He fought in the Spanish Revolution, right? And his mother was a Marxist. The father was the anarchist. That's it. The father was the anarchist. The mother was the Marxist, and they fought like cats and dogs. And Arthur comes along, and of course we know that Arthur's father was a cartographer for the UN, and his grandfather was a horologist, which meant he studied clocks. They produce an astrologer with very strange social concepts. And at age 12, he's lecturing to the international workers of the world, right? very strange, but that's that Mercury ascendant and that node going with the cardinals and the Neptune. He could have been in media. He could have done well there, but he chose metaphysics. He chose to work at the Strand bookstore for many, many years. So the cardinal axis becomes how we figure connections occur. If I take the reflection of the Jupiter on this cardinal axis, this position here, when a transit comes, when a direction comes, or a progression comes, it's going to connect that Jupiter into the cardinal axis, and he will gain in the world.
Oh, yes. And that's why
If I take the reflection of Saturn,
or how much they've been
right, when a transit hits this, or a direction hits this, or somebody else's horoscope hits it, if some point of somebody's chart hits it, it will connect the Saturn to the cardinals, and you will experience difficulty. Now, this is an important thing. You'll note that some folk create success by the partnerships they make, or the people they connect with, or the corporations they connect with, or the governments they work within. And that's what we call the concept of completion. It's as if this Jupiter is hanging out, waiting to be balanced. The Jupiter is hanging out, waiting to be balanced on the cardinal axis. And it's unoccupied. And that makes it important, because when something hits it, this event will occur that isn't part of his nature. Whereas, if something of a Mercury-Mars kind of event occurs, he has a Mercury-Mars conjunction. This is not new information to him. The events will be such that he knows how to deal with them. So it's important to know the places in the horoscope that are unoccupied. And it's as important as the places that are occupied. What is occupied is what's so. What's unoccupied is what if. And the Uranian system and symmetrical gives us that ability to ask questions in the horoscope that can't be answered with orthodox astrology.
Okay.
Ya ven, les dije, lo más interesante de este congreso ha sido esta plática con Gary. Entonces, thank you very much, Gary.
Oh, thank you.
Your conference was excellent.
Oh, thank you.
The best in this congress was this conference. Thank you very much.
You guys have a great time, and I hope you enjoy it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Muchas gracias.
Very good.
Congratulations. Ah, thank you very much.
Gary.
Luis, I see you soon.